Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending where you're at. This is Wrestling Fans Incite. I am Brian Ballard, along with Will Hoppe. John will not be joining this week, but he'll be back in action next week soon enough. Will, how you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, as well as can be considered with everything that's going on. We had our discussion before this, and just both of us are kind of going through some not so great health issues right now, but I'm here.
Yeah, I was going to say we're going to push through here, surviving the migraine day and all that fun stuff.
Yep.
But, there's stuff to talk about. There's stuff to cover and across a couple of different wrestling brands. So let's go ahead and let's jump in. We'll start with WWE programming. This week, we've seen quite a few things that stuck out overall, but we're doing the build to WrestleMania. And what was some of the highlights that you've noticed this week that really kind of stuck out to you as a viewer?
So there's quite a bit going on. You see the storylines building. I was kind of surprised to see that they decided to make a triple threat out of CM Punk, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins. I think that's just going to be a killer match. You've got the whole Cena controversy. Things are just kind of going wild. It's going to be interesting to see where they go with Jey Uso. They're starting to try to build Jimmy up, which is amazing.
I did see that on SmackDown. They going to the triple threat that you mentioned, they kind of started this at Royal Rumble, right? They
Yeah.
started really, and they brought that up on Friday. And talking through that, I had a friend of mine who we were talking a little wrestling, and he was like, "Oh no, they're not going to do a triple threat." And I was like, "I kind of think they are, right?" And then he's like, "Oh well, we'll see." And I was like, "Yeah, we will." And so here we are, right? And the storyline just makes the most sense, and you almost want a triple threat because somebody would have been the odd man out in this situation, and then you would have been fumbling trying to figure out what to do with that third man this year. So. And I used to hate when the WWE went through years of triple threat matches at Mania. Like it was just one after the other after the other. And I feel like they took a little break from it where now I feel like this would come off really well. And I think these guys will entertain well enough. Who do you see coming out on top of them this one? Like just a little mini prediction before Mania.
Honestly, at this point, it's either going to be Punk or Roman Reigns, and I truly believe it's going to end up being Punk.
Yeah, I see Punk because I feel like they will build him towards something else in the future. Maybe even a Punk Cena match, right? That we've been hinting at. I could see him giving it to Roman too, just because I don't see Roman getting pinned 2 WrestleManias in a row. But that's the beauty of the triple threat is Seth could be the odd guy out, right? So Roman doesn't technically get pinned, or we could see Roman. I don't think they would do this, but Roman in his last triple threat at WrestleMania, he pinned both of his opponents at the same time, both now AEW guys, but we did see that. So I think it's going to come off really well. Go ahead.
The other scenario I could see is 2 people pinning one at once, and then it leading into further storytelling.
I like that idea too. Maybe a little backlash, because I believe Backlash is going to have a pretty quick turnaround time from Mania. And so they're going to have to build, some continuation stories there. So, yeah, I could see that as well leading into a one-on-one bout.
Yeah, it's going to be extremely quick. We're talking about May.
And, and I'm kind of assuming that Roman's in the match. And I feel like Roman will take another break possibly after Mania, right? And go away for a month or so. And I feel like what you're proposing would be perfect for him to go away and for Punk and Rollins to continue the feud into Backlash. So I can see that. Absolutely.
Yeah, they actually created a pretty good scenario where they have a lot of directions they can go.
Other things that I've noticed this week on programming, and I like what I'm seeing as far as the mid-card titles, the Intercontinental title and the United States title being more prominent on Raw and SmackDown respectively. And I like that the WWE is kind of bringing them back to relevancy and building up their champions and trying to continue stories. I've always said, the world champion does not have to be there every week. And, I know that's kind of an old school mindset, right? Because modern era, the champ was here. That was the whole moniker, right? But, then we got away with that from Roman. But I feel like, yeah, you could have these mid card titles be the main events, which you've seen on Raw with Braun Breaker. They were in the last spot on that show with a title defense. And then we've seen a number one contender match on SmackDown where was it Braun Strowman was named number one contender, and he'll get his title match next week for the United States title. So thoughts on that in mid card titles?
I'm 100% for the mid card titles. I've always loved them. They are definitely going interesting directions with them. More so to the point where they're going with Jacob Fatu versus, Solo. I think that's going to tell a whole other story. And it's interesting to see if they're going to implode or not.
Yeah. And, that I could see building more and more and more, which that'll be the match. That will be the Samoan, not death match, but you know what I mean? That would be the big, giant payoff match where I think these guys would just wreak havoc on each other. And, almost excited just kind of thinking, but I think that would be definitely, that's going to be the story is can they align? Will they not? And I think we all can see that. Curious question. Intercontinental title, United States title. Which do you have a preference over the value of one title versus the other?
I've always felt like the Intercontinental title held a lot more value. Just it's always been something that everybody was prized after, whereas the U.S. title was something that was kind of a little more specific to each talent.
Yeah, and for me, I'm with you on that. The WWE or the WWF Intercontinental title even it's got such a lineage and history, and I think that history has been told really well. They definitely publicized it, but it was the workman's title, right? It was the the Brett title, the Shawn Michaels title, the guys that just worked heavy, and the goal was it was like the test title to see if these guys can be a world champion and actually be the face of a company, right? And that even goes back to the Savage Steamboat at Mania, which stole the show at WrestleMania 3. Kind of to that point, has there been any memorable United States champions that stick out in your mind or matches that would be like directly connected to that title in the annals of time, as they like to say?
I got to go out there and just say it. The most memorable recent was John Cena.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's and he did that open challenge with it, right? He put his own spin on the title with the spinner title. But
Yeah,
then
and he's pretty much the one who created that whole weekly open challenge thing.
Yeah, and then for me, it put over a lot of people. Like to me, that brought Kevin Owens to the main card with a plan. And I remember Kevin Owens making his appearance in that open challenge and, really had a great feud with John Cena in that. And I was like, wow, they just took this guy from NXT and used the mid card title. And John made Kevin look very, very strong. And then, of course, we know Kevin, spent about a year or so working with Jericho. So, I mean, they really set him up the right way to be built up.
Yeah. And we got to remember, we still got the Randy Orton versus Kevin Owens, and that's going to be savage.
Yeah, and that's another feature, right, is now official at WrestleMania is Orton versus Kevin Owens. And if I was to put a prediction right now, just with the match just announced a night or two ago, I'm going to say I feel like Orton does win this one. He's been heavily advertised for Backlash, and I feel like they're going to do something with him, maybe even in a main event type style matchup. But he's got to, have a good solid win and match under his belt, right, before they can do that. And I feel like Kevin Owens is that stepping stone for that.
Well, absolutely. I mean, business-wise, Randy Orton is the bigger draw. So I couldn't see going any other way.
No, it's definitely. The only thing I would, if I was to add some seasoning to that match, I would like to see a special guest referee be implemented in that.
And you want to see Sammy?
I want to see Sammy. I think it gives Sammy something to do at Mania, right? And it gives him, or let me phrase that, it gives him something to do meaningful at Mania. And there's still a little bit of story there. And they just had, that matchup, back at Elimination Chamber. But I feel like that would be like a nice little revenge piece there. And, of course, I'm going to call it on the line. I'll call it straight up. And, or he could even play into that and say, well, I'd call it just the way you would. I'd be honest. You would be honest, wouldn't you, Kevin? So I feel like that would be a interesting dynamic to add. And I feel like that could just, also, I think of public marketing, right? WWE just loves that feature in their 2K games. And they just introduced it a year ago, right? The special referee feature, they brought it back. And I feel like anytime they can cross market into something they're selling, I think that's just another avenue.
Huh. So where do you think they're going to go with Drew McIntyre, Shinsuke, and of course LA Knight?
Yeah. I've said before, Drew McIntyre has been probably my favorite wrestler and his work in the last year.
No, he's awesome.
I've liked him. I won so much respect for him when he left the WWE. I believe he might have left or let go, right? And he went and reinvented himself. And great talent knows how to do that, right? And then he reinvented himself to where they're practically begging him to come back, right? And he came back and became a world champion. But not only just that, his work, it's very entertaining. There's the little things that he does. I'm like, I'll say like, oh, do this. And then sure enough, he does. And I'm like, man, he's good. And I was like, it's just little things that he pays attention to and the details. Last year, I remember him tweeting in a live match, right? Bored at work, right? And he took a photo. Yeah. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah. He took a selfie while beating up on his opponent. And he's like, bored at work. And I was like, that's genius. And it attaches to social media, right, into the modern era. And I was like, he's so good. And so I feel like they want him to be a very prominent player in 2025. And I feel like he's going to have to pick up a solid win at Mania, no matter what he's doing, right? Outside being interjected in the Cody match, right?
I just don't want to see two triple threats on the same card.
Would you be okay with it if it was on two different nights, though?
If it was two different nights, yes.
Okay. Yeah, because, I forget that myself, right? And because I still like Mania as one night, but I feel like they could split it up like that. And, we would probably know the wiser. And we would notice, but we wouldn't notice as much. And then, so I'm looking there and I'm saying Drew's definitely got to get something going. What about the other guys in the match? What are your thoughts on them outside of Drew?
Shinsuke, I feel like he's just always been misplaced. He's a great talent, and he's just never really been given the time window that he should have been given as a champion. As far as LA Knight goes, he's also kind of been given the short shank, as it would be. He will continue to be a good champion. He will have further championships, but I kind of side with you on this one. I do think we need to get Drew back into the picture.
Yeah, I think there's just a slightly bigger star power there, right? In the way they've been built up in the WWE universe. So Shinsuke, I feel I'm looking back through, 2020 vision, right, in the past here, and not the year 2020, but perfect vision, I should say. I gotta watch saying that now. And I feel like he never recovered from that after winning the Royal Rumble and losing to AJ at Mania, right? Like it just kind of, he's had these moments where they thought of him, but he's never felt the same to me since then. And LA Knight, I actually, back at Royal Rumble, I think it was either a conversation that we had or it was a tweet. And I remember saying, if the WWE really wanted to do something and use this Royal Rumble to build a new star, they would have, and I gave the example of LA Knight, win this thing and challenge for the Gunther title, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, you got the Machine Gunther versus the super mega over LA Knight. And unfortunately, I almost felt like now was that time to maybe pull the trigger. Even if he didn't win the title from Gunther, I felt like it was the time for him to win a Rumble and go for a title at Mania, even if he came up a little short, you know?
Yeah, I think maybe they missed their mark by about a year.
Yeah. And, with him being an older star who's been in the business a while, I feel like they're almost glossing over it now. And, they love him. He sells merch. He's a very strong, U.S. Intercontinental level holder. He could sneak up in a multi-man match into a main event. But I felt like this year they threw me off with Jay, right? And I get he's been there longer. But I really felt that we may have missed the mark on LA Knight now. And I've noticed the little things that they're starting to do. So, great example, Slim Jim commercials, right? You've seen LA Knight in these Slim Jim commercials.
Uh-huh.
And he's creating outside branding and marketing with the right? Instead of yeah. He's getting a lot of that. But have you noticed any newer Slim Jim commercials and what they're starting to do?
Absolutely not. I've seen more recent Jack Links commercials than I have that.
So basically, they've started having LA Knight and Jey Uso in these commercials. And it's like he's got to share that endorsement now. And I noticed they got him and Jey Uso riding in the car together with Slim Jim. And I'm like, oh, no. They're trying to give that endorsement to Jey.
Okay, I think I did see that one.
And they're transitioning over to, and I said, oh, that's not good for LA Knight. So, I mean, and I know they have a long-term plan. But, Jay and his work he did through the bloodline, I think they're really trying to reward that. And, with that family history there in the Federation and the WWE Entertainment, I feel like they're really catering to that. And, LA Knight's the guy that made himself outside of the WWE.
Yeah.
And he really, was not planned for that success when he even came up from the main roster or to the main roster. So I feel like it's almost the Zack Ryder effect, right? It was an success.
I think there was a lot behind that too, behind the scenes that people don't know about.
Well, that's a very good point. We're speculating from the outside, right? We're peeking in the windows of the house. We have some ideas, but the truth is, we don't know. I mean, the person could be the worth, right?
It's like John and I talked about recently. We discussed that, hey, look, these wrestlers are still people too. Yep. They have their personal lives. They have their own crap they got to deal with.
Absolutely. And, I look and I'm like, we look at all the talent, but we don't know what the day-to-day work situation is, and it's, it could be just a matter of this is kind of where we see you. And, if you don't want to do all the talk shows and do all the, stuff that takes to be the main event guy, then, maybe
you mean the John Cena schedule?
Right. The John Cena schedule. I mean, everybody knows I've got the most respect for John because I always said John Cena could be Hulk Hogan in Hulk Hogan's era, but Hulk Hogan couldn't be John Cena in John Cena's era. And it's no disrespect to Hulk Hogan. The industry's grown so much and there's so many cameras and everything everywhere. And it would have been tougher, I think, for Hogan to fit into that role and be perfectly squeaky clean versus.
Yeah, no, for sure. John Cena has been better at adaptability.
And, and he gave up a lot of his life for that too, right? Like not having kids, not being married for this time, where Hogan was able to have a family and we weren't even knew that because the business was more closed off. So
just the Make-A-Wish alone.
Yeah. And the Make-A-Wish is a good point. You gave me a perfect transition there, right?
Yeah.
We're going from Make-A-Wish to heel version, is it going to be Take a Wish, right? Or Break a Wish? Or, we got John Cena coming out and giving his explanation. What was your initial thoughts? They opened the show with it on Raw. So just overall thoughts on that segment. It ran a good 30 minutes.
I think this might have been John Cena's greatest performance, to be honest with you. Like, he waited his whole life to really go mega heel, and he did it in a way that really just got everybody's attention.
It was unique, right?
Yeah. Like, nobody expected that. I didn't expect it.
In other words, we got nothing, right? We got nothing. It was, if you,
He
go ahead.
came out and said, "My time is truly now."
Yeah. And he played the abusive ex, victim, right? And, he's a victim of the fans. And I like that take. I like that he went that route, right? I did a fun little TikTok with it where I paired it up like Nikki Bella was in the crowd while he was saying it. And it worked perfectly because you would imagine like this is him saying this to Nikki Bella and it would still work. Like, as far as, breaking up with somebody, right? Because he broke up with the fans. And, I just thought, he took something that happens in the real world, applied it to his character. And, some people said, oh, it's whiny. I didn't really like that. I'm like, well, good. That's kind of the point. It's supposed to be a little annoying, right? And, but I really like the fact that he didn't change his attire. I like that he, was like, no, I'm not doing anything. I constantly, you're like, what do I get? Right. And
he slightly adjusted it, but he didn't change the meaning of it. So it was interesting with what he did with that. I wasn't ever that big of a fan of Cena until I watched the Peacemaker series, and then I realized, okay, this guy's got more depth.
yeah, and that's actually got another season coming too, out here soon, and that's going to be great. I love that series. It's John. I thought it was very strategic. I remember when the turn happened, I said, please don't put him on Monday Night Raw immediately, right? Because we live in a world of instant gratification, and everybody's like, I need it now. I want it now. I want to Amazon it, right? I want it to my doorstep, and make these people wait, and they're going to be more annoyed, right? And because we got a whole generation that doesn't know how to wait for stuff. And so I really was kind of like, if you're going to be a heel, I'm like, I'll give you an answer when I want to give you an answer. I don't work for you anymore, essentially. Right.
That's what made me laugh so hard with the media scrum mic drop. He didn't say a word. He walked in, grabbed it, dropped it.
Yep. And it essentially is foreshadowing. It's I don't work for you guys anymore. I used to work for you guys, meaning the fans. I don't work for you anymore. And I thought it was also strategic to put it in front of a foreign crowd. I say this all the time. We have a lot of great fans in the United States, but we also get a lot of great content. And sometimes that makes us not as enthusiastic, right? Because it's just, you see so much and you're like, to really get you to blow the roof off the top, it's got to be something way over the top, right? So I thought putting it in front of an audience that doesn't always get WWE touring, that crowd was loud. And there was a point where John said, you're making
absolutely
this very easy.
Yeah, they popped.
And
I've never seen that kind of a reaction, and it was awesome to watch.
Yeah, and he even said like, you're making this very easy. And I was like, AKA, you're making my job really easy right now. And I think it was smart to put it in that crowd. They were vocal. They were naturally going to be vocal, but you had a Cena heel turn into it. It just played into it. WWE knows what they're doing. They're very smart with that. And, and I love the fact there was no Rock. Thoughts on that? Was it okay just having Cena? They had a little Cody in there.
No, I think this is perfect. I love the fact that he's hanging back because he's going to get involved.
Yeah, and I looked and shout out to Cody Rhodes too, the way John got the bulk of the time and got left alone with the audience, and then Cody came out once they started chanting for Cody, right? And it was the perfect time to hit his music, right, to the Hero's Welcome. And then he got a little interaction, but his interaction was less than 2 minutes, right? And
Yeah.
perfectly done. It's asserting yourself. I'm the champion, and I don't know who this is. And the fact that he came out, asserted himself, and said, I'm the man, and walked out, I was like very, very strong for Cody. If he would have stayed longer than 4 to 5 minutes, it would have drawn a little thin, I think. And I think it was just less is more sometimes. Any other thoughts on this week's WWE programming before maybe we look at some other WWE programming?
I want to drop into NXT real quick.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So I know you've been busy. You've had a hard time keeping up with it. There is a lot going on with NXT. They're starting to ramp up again. You've got Obafemi, who's got a lot of opposition. Who is now a double champion. You've got Tony D, who just lost his title. The women's division is on fire. Pretty sure we're going to see Jordan Grace be picking up a title pretty soon off of Stephanie Vaquer. It's crazy.
So if I'm to tag in as let's just say a casual WrestleMania fan, right? Who we get a lot of those around this time of year. My top 3 reasons to watch NXT would be Obafemi, Jordan Grace, and is there a third one that just really that you would say if to a friend that doesn't watch a lot and say watch these 3 people? Who's your third?
That's a tough one to call because there's just so much going on with NXT right now. They've been involving a lot of the TNA, which I've thoroughly enjoyed that. I'm pretty sure you're going to see Trick Williams move up to main roster soon, which is fantastic. If I have to put a finger on it,
What would Trick Williams?
I think we're going to see Sol Ruca start to rise.
Okay. I could see that. Sol Ruca is another one that has always caught my eye. Early on, I felt there was a good look there, a good character. Obafemi, the first time I watched him wrestle, I was like, this is a real guy here. And you just seen it.
Did you catch his interactions with Moose?
I caught some highlights of it.
Yeah, that was pretty good. But if there was a fourth one, I would say would be in contention, Javon Evans.
Yeah, he's definitely very speedy high flyer. I've caught some of the multi-man matches with him.
Yeah.
The big thing is that we always talk, and we were talking a little bit of this off air, is what's the plan, right? Like Trick Williams, you mentioned, possibly moving up to the main roster. I feel like 1, very much needed, and 2, I would like to see him and Carmelo back together.
Oh yeah.
I feel like both of them have something to gain, right? And I feel like it would be kind of a nice,
it would be a nice pickup to Carmelo Hayes' recent, bad luck, so to speak.
Yeah, and honestly, I would put them in the tag division.
Yeah.
And to refresh Carmelo, and it gets Trick on the main roster with a plan, right?
Yep.
And the tag division, they need some talent there, to make the divisions a little bigger. So I think they're a natural 1-2 combo. So I feel like, versus Street Profits would be fun.
I would like to see more usage out of Adriana Rizzo.
Okay.
I don't know if you've watched her actually wrestle. She's freaking amazing.
How would you like to see her be booked?
I want to see her start off kind of low card up to mid card, but I really, really want to see kind of a change of style instead of being, part of the fam, and more so her breaking away from that and pushing on her own.
I like that.
Because if you
And
haven't
then
ever watched her actually wrestle, she can move.
she was always lost in the shuffle for me.
Yeah,
And
they haven't utilized her much.
sometimes that happens with NXT, right? Because they're just trying things. And I've seen her, but I've said, oh, okay, you're in this shuffle here. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's good. Yeah, I wanted to touch on Obafemi, right? Because here's, in my opinion, kind of the next big thing. I think he's got all the factors, right? He's got not just a good look, size. Um, he's a good power wrestler that can
he's
dominate.
he's also a hell of a speaker on the mic.
Yeah, he's got a. He reminds me. It's almost like a hybrid of like Big E meets. I'm trying to like Mark Henry, and like he's just got like a nice blend of styles, but there's those power styles.
Yeah,
And
he's like Omos but better.
well, yeah, it's hey now Omos for president, right? WWE commissioner. I'm still campaigning for that one.
No, he's doing really well. I don't see any problems with Obafemi. I don't want to see them, as we discussed previously. I don't want to see him move up for about another year to the main roster because I want the main roster to build up something for him to work with.
Yeah, and that's about the plan. I've seen NXT, and this was some years ago, but when they bring them up hot out the gate, right? And
Yeah,
the two biggest things that I think the WWE didn't quite have the plan for was Nia Jax and oh my gosh, I'm losing my mind here. Um, Apollo, not Creed, Apollo Cruz.
Cruz.
Yeah, so I remember when they brought them up, and they're just one, I was like, ooh, that's a little early, but then there was just kind of fizzled out, right? And it took Nia a while to recover from that. And Paulo, they tried to pair him with your buddy Obathan or your buddy Omas, right? Or no, not Omas. He had Shane McMahon's guy. I can't even think. The big giant guy, Avocado. But they had him with him and kind of tried to do a little bit of gimmick there, but they just never caught on. So with Obafemi, I'd like to see him come up and be dominant immediately. I think if he comes up and then he just kind of loses to Braun Strowman or some smaller guy, mid card guys, I think you would just lose his steam. And I think he's kind of a Brock Lesnar kind of guy, right? You just kind of throw the jetpack on him when he's ready. And I don't think that's
Yeah,
been the
no. WWE needs to capitalize on this guy.
who. If you was to have him debut and squash somebody that was very relevant, who would you do that
to. Roman Reigns.
Oh, that is how you build a star right there.
Oh yeah.
I think the
Just
Samoan
come in,
just
and pull a Kevin Owens and just take the top guy out real quick.
Yeah, I would look towards a more of a. My pick would be more towards like a brawler, like maybe a Kevin Owens, right? Somebody that's more of a brawler type style wrestler that the fans say, oh no, they can go. I mean, in my brain, it's like a Steve Austin, right, or somebody,
Is that
more.
or have him come in and he's up against Braun
That
Breaker?
actually, yes, and it wouldn't hurt Braun
No,
because Braun would be built up another year enough to say, oh, he caught me off guard. It was an open challenge. I didn't expect him. I
yeah,
didn't plan for him. So Braun could be very protected in that. And Obafemi could literally come in and knock Braun right down. And it would be a very dominant action. And that actually would be a fun matchup between those two on a main
oh, it
roster.
would.
So, well, I will have to tag in a little more on NXT. Like I said, I've also caught a little bit of some of the other developmental stuff.
Well, if you don't have the time, to watch, which I know you're a busy guy, just drop in on the Bleacher Reports.
Yeah. So, or usually highlights, or if I watch it, it's a speed version of watching it, right? With my little fast forward button.
Yeah, we lose a lot of context with speed watching.
Yep. And sometimes, I'm doing that on a quick moment. I'm like, let me see what we got. And then, or I'll circle back around. I'm like, I'm going to have to watch that later. So, because it looks like it was actually um, kind of shifting over. Let's talk a little bit on the other brand. And AEW Dynamite had its follow up show, had a heck of a main event with Mox and Cope. Initial thoughts. I know you've seen a lot of internet buzz on that as well.
I thought they played this one extremely well. Um, Cope has no need whatsoever to gain any more accolades. He doesn't need it. He's already a star. There's nothing anybody can take away from him. If anything, it helps build up the legitimacy of how tough Mox is. So I think they played this right. I think it's somebody else that needs to take Mox out.
100% agree with you. I was a little worried that they were going to give it to Cope, aka Edge, for people that are used to his WWE name. Ultimately, I'm glad they didn't go that route because I'm with you. I feel like it since he has held the AEW championship hostage, right? And put it in a briefcase and hid it from everyone. And it's got to be an AEW original built hero, if you will, to save AEW.
How would you feel about Jack Perry?
I don't know if I would feel much about him being the guy. I personally, I feel like MJF is the natural one that would fit into that. He's our scumbag, right? And he's their biggest homegrown star. And I feel like that would make sense. And then he's not all the way on AEW's side, right? So he's still
Ooh.
serving. He's like, no, no, no.
Ooh.
I saved your title. You owe me even more. I should get a bonus. Like he can still be the savior, but it's in a stone coldish way, where
You just caused me a thought.
okay,
MJF comes in and takes it. Wardlow gets off the frickin' injured list. Mega fight.
they've got history.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I do wonder where Wardlow stands now.
I do too. He's been off for quite a while.
And I like the idea. It would definitely be a series with him. And I could see even Tony Khan sending people to try to get this belt away from MJF, right? But MJF is like, I run the show now. And don't get me wrong, I'm very pro this company because they pay me a lot,
Oh, I'm always down to watch MJF. So
and I think it solidifies him more. Not that he isn't, but I think it's a way to get his title back, right? It wasn't for AEW, but it was for him personally, and I feel like that could be a good story. There could be other arguments for the AEW originals, right? Like, you could say Kenny Omega, but I just don't know if I think they'd want somebody a little bit younger in the career.
Yeah.
Darby Allin, I've heard that name. Thoughts on that?
I love the hell out of Darby. I do. I just don't think he's the guy either. Like, I think he's good for maybe the Continental.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as world title goes, just no.
I would like to see Darby actually join Mox and Company.
That'd be cool. And I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a bit of a mirror effect going on between AEW and WWE.
Okay.
You just stop and think about it for a minute. Moxley, MJF, Cena, Cody Rhodes.
Mox and MJF, Cena, Cody Rhodes. Okay.
think about the scenarios there.
Yeah,
They're kind of playing the same story here.
they are. Yeah, definitely building up secretly, and sneaking. It's kind of sneaking them in there for the right time, which for AEW is going to be, all in, um, or all out. The It's interesting too with Darby. Like you said, I don't see him dethroning Mox, but I do see him, freshening up the character a little bit. I could see him in a situation where he joins Mox, loses the face paint a little bit, right? And I think it has to come at a maybe betrayal of Sting. And I don't want to see Sting back, but remember he came back to save Darby, what was it, about 8-9 months ago, just for one time appearance, right? Just to come down and help. And I feel like he could do that. He set precedents and said, I'm going to come there and kind of always have your back in the big moments. And I think that would be the moment of using a legend perfectly to enhance Darby even more. And I could see him being more of a, kind of shell of his painted self. He can always go back to that, when he finds his way back. But I do believe that, I would like to see that. But as those guys to dethrone Mox, it is a short list, but I think there are people that would make sense.
I think another one that would make sense in there is Takeshita.
Takeshita, yeah, I could see. Do they have history overseas together?
I'm not sure.
Okay. So that's, I would also, I'm a big advocate for Will Ospreay. I could see he could be a hero of AEW too. I could see it. I know he's built himself up overseas more and then came here, but he's still, I believe, young enough to still be the face of a company for, many moons.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever met Will Ospreay.
Yeah, I have not.
He's really cool in person. He's about one of the nicest person I've ever met.
Well, and I do pick up that vibe just watching his performance. I feel like he's likable, and I feel like he's almost the opposite of an MJF, and can be kind of that face of the company, and he will, take the pictures with the kids and, do things like that.
He really is.
Where were you able to meet him at?
The Jericho Cruise, man. Throw the plug in. Throw the plug in.
Now that's was there anything else on AEW programming that kind of stuck out to you this week?
We really, really, really need to talk about Megan Bain.
Let's do it.
Cool. I don't know if you know the history of Megan Bain. She started off a gymnast. She went through several promotions before coming to AEW ultimately. Before she came to AEW and signed a contract, she actually had a few matches, mostly on Dark, which of one she actually faced somebody you recently interviewed, which was Layla Gray.
Interesting.
She is extremely dominant. She is talented. I'm not sure I agree with their choice to have her taking out Chris Statlander, but I do see where they're going with it, and she would make an impressive dominant champion.
They recently had a casino gauntlet match, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And she did catch my eye in that. At first, I think that might have been her debut because the announcers really had to explain who she was, right?
Yeah.
And put her over, and they did a great job with that. But I even was like, whoa, who's this? What's going on? And, so I feel like they've got a lot of young female talent in their development list.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like we're going to see more of that because I do believe that division is important to Tony Khan.
Oh, yeah. We're starting to see another push on Julia Hart again.
Yep. Yeah, and she had a match last night where they did Queen Aminata and Julia Hart,
Yep.
but Queen Aminata refused help
Serena Deeb.
from Serena Deeb, right? And she said, no, I'll do this one on my own. Well, she failed. So
Yep.
it's a good way to get Serena tied into there as well. I kind of like her in the manager role. I'm not going to lie. They're kind of turning her into I love the playbook where with 1,000 holds, it gave me Dean Malenko vibes, right? Like,
Yeah, I consider Serena Deeb possibly the Paul Heyman in female version.
absolutely. Yeah. And I like some of the stories they're cooking. And, also I've noticed they've been bringing in a lot of girls trying to see kind of like what they have with them on, especially on Collision. And I think they're going to do a little more Dynamite, right, with some local talents in the area and bringing them in for trials. And I feel like we're going to see some good things in the coming months on that end. Was there any other notable things from AEW that you liked?
I I don't think so. They're just kind of steady plugging along. It's curious to see how it's going to work out between Swerve and Mox. I'm pretty sure Mox isn't going to come out on top.
And now that you brought that up, I would add Swerve into that list of guys that I would accept as a guy to dethrone Moxley. I don't know if it would happen right away, right? But
No, it would almost be the same thing as the Bryan Danielson thing, where it took 2-3 tries.
Absolutely, and because I see Swerve, and I do see him as he was already got one title reign under him, but I see him as he can be the face of an AEW, and he's still young enough in his career, and he's, I remember, watching. I was like, just hearing him talk, and I was like, why does he need a manager? Like that was the question that kept popping. I was like, I don't think he needs a manager. Like I know there's history there, but I'm like, I don't think he needs them. I think he could thrive on his own and almost be more. So
yeah. Here's another question for you. When the Young Bucks get done overseas, you think they're going to go after the Hurt Syndicate?
absolutely. I could see them reuniting the Elite versus the Hurt Syndicate.
Yeah.
I think Kenny Omega could rejoin them.
Yep.
I wouldn't even put off, Hangman, right? Like I think we could get almost a, Survivor Series or War Game style match, right? I think we could get that between the two.
Right.
Something big. I don't want Stadium Stampede, but
yeah, it would match the same level as the reunification of DX.
yes, and so I could see something in that lines. I think it would make sense. I would like to see I think it could go either way with who would win. I think it doesn't hurt either one to lose, but I also think it could help either one. So
I think it would good go to have the Hurt Syndicate come over one more time and then have them dropped because, I mean, let's be honest, Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, they're getting up there.
Yeah. So yeah, it's to me that definitely would fit in, and so I am going to be interested to see kind of, it's fun to think about the future of AEW. One thing I noticed on last night's Collision, I watched an opening matchup, and it was Adam Cole, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And did you see that match, Adam Cole and
I did.
Yeah,
Daniel Garcia.
And Daniel Garcia. And I watched it, and they didn't have a terrible match. Like it was to me it was a B plus, right? Like it was there. It was good. They had good pacing. I liked kind of, when they started announcing the time limits, I'm like, oh boy, right? And I'm like, so I felt like, yes, they were going to carry this on to more of a story. I still feel like Adam Cole has lost a step in his appeal.
Adam Cole got screwed.
Yeah, because he used to draw me
His
majorly, right?
his move to AEW has done nothing for him.
Yeah, I mean, I was into the MJF and him stuff, but I think that was more because of MJF, and so I'm watching, and they're not having a bad match last night. But I said to myself, I said, "Oh, Adam Cole, where did you go wrong?" I mean, I thought at one point I was like, "This is the next Shawn Michaels," and
No, I think he would have been better off either going to New Japan or Ring of Honor.
yeah, and for me, I mean, I think it was almost like he needs to separate from the, what he's done and maybe reinvent. I don't know how to go about doing that right. Maybe it's an Owen Hart Cup win. Well, he's already won it though, So I mean, you can't really pull that card.
He might be potentially, if they choose to go that way, might want to put him in the race for the Continental Championship.
I can see that. Um, it's weird because I can't put my finger on exactly what he's lost, right? Because I still believe he's a charismatic guy. I still
I think
believe that his in-ring work is okay.
I think a lot of people were really vested into him and Britt Baker.
Okay.
And ever since that split between them, I don't think it's done them well.
Yeah, and, I think it's affected both. Yeah, I would agree with you. He, I don't know if I'd give him an escort or a manager or something because he can speak for himself, but I don't know what he needs, and that's the most frustrating part for me when I watch his work rate.
Maybe, just maybe, he could be a potential candidate for the elite.
I like that idea a lot. He fits their style. I could see him joining and fitting in with the group really well, and maybe that's what he needs. Maybe he needs to blend in with a group a little bit, right?
Yeah, something other than what he's already been part of, several times. And I think that's maybe where the disconnect might be.
I think you're onto something there with that idea. It reminded me of like Claudio going in with Mox, right? Like he's there, or
Yeah.
even Pac, right? They're there. You notice them.
Yeah. And the sad part is neither one of them need to be part of anything to be who they are.
Yeah. But I could see Adam Cole getting into the elite. I like that. And then getting to a point where, it just freshens it up a little. And then, you can always spin them out if you need to. But I do like the idea that like, we have to start associating him with something on a main event programming.
Yeah. Need to get him back to being relevant.
Yeah. So, but that was one of the main things that stuck out to me last night. And I really spent a lot of time watching. And, I thought both guys did good work, but I just, I was really like, I'm glad we talked it out here. I was really like just on the Adam Cole stuff. And I was like, man, like, how do you fix it? So,
Yeah. There's only one other issue I can think of. I think it's time for maybe Camille to come back in and take out Monet.
yeah. Yeah. She's been out for a little bit on that. I'm still surprised they did not take Mercedes and go the Hurt Syndicate route, or because I know, remember he gave her a card, MVP, back when he was initially starting the whole syndicate, and they never like added her into that fold, and I'm surprised that hasn't came to light yet.
I just don't know. Like I take a look at Mercedes Monet, and you all know I'm not a big fan of her. She's a great wrestler, no doubt. But I think that they have completely mismanaged her representation.
What would you have done differently?
First of all, spokesperson, because she sucks on the mic. The first mistake made was she didn't put a whole lot of effort when she first came back. Third thing is, with the crowd reactions, she probably could have done a better job of just playing into it rather than opposing it.
That makes sense. Yeah, I can. Well, and again, you kind of mentioned the mic work. I think that's where MVP comes in perfectly. Being a spokesperson and
absolutely, he's another guy I got to meet on the cruise. Good guy.
Yeah. And last time I checked, every business needs a CEO, so I think it naturally fits. I think that was the majority of AEW Dynamite. Was there anything else you wanted to bring up on the show today?
I don't think so. I'm just kind of looking forward to Dynasty, and then we're looking at, after that, dealing with WrestleMania, and then Backlash shortly after.
Yeah, we're going to be zooming right along. And then, as you mentioned, also NXT Stand and Deliver coming up in the mix of all those PLEs and pay-per-views. So, we're definitely buckled in, and we are fully in Mania season. And we got AEW also competing on the side and doing their thing. And I feel like they're laying out their programming this year. Yeah.
Tiffany Stratton, Charlotte Flair, thoughts?
Sure. I like the fact that this match is happening. I like the idea that you have a seasoned vet in Charlotte Flair against a very young, up-and-coming champion, right? If they can get Tiffany over on Charlotte at WrestleMania, it will be big for her next year as champion, and it'll be big for her career. And I feel like that's where they want to go, is to build her as the next great, right? She's put a lot of work in. She actually refused at one point, not refused, but asked to stay in NXT longer because she didn't feel she was ready to, jump right up to
she's dead wrong. She's dead wrong.
Yeah, but at one point she wanted, she goes, can I stay a little longer? I just feel like there's stuff that I need to still do and perfect because I want to get it right. And I respected her. I was like, wow, that takes, it's so easy to grab the ring, right? To grab the brass ring. And
the unfortunate part about that is sometimes that can be a career killer.
Well, yeah. And sometimes, it can be well, if you don't want to do it now, then don't come later. Right. And I thought it was I respected her for that. And I said, you know what? She cares about the little things. That's what I really liked and what truly won me over. I was like, she cares enough about those little things that she wants to get it right. And I want to see what she does once she comes in that main roster. And here we are, champion going into WrestleMania.
Yeah, and I don't care which way it goes. I think given the level of performance both of these ladies give, we're going to get a hell of a show.
I would agree. Who do you like in that matchup? Or how would you like to see that come out?
Stratton. Charlotte does not need to prove anything else.
I would totally agree. I'd have to look up how many championships were coming up on for her, because she might be sneaking on dear old dad's record in another
for
way.
Charlotte?
Yeah.
She's at 14.
14? Okay, so it would sneak her another one towards 16.
And if there's ever anybody to dethrone Ric Flair, it's going to be John Cena or Charlotte Flair.
Yeah. And everybody's looking at John, right? But Charlotte's 14 reigns have been very sneaky on the side. We know they're happening, but we don't think of it in the same terms as, 16-time champ, until it's actually at 16, right? It's like she hits the finish line and then we notice she won, so. But yeah, I think it's going to be a fun program to watch. I like when I can see a seasoned vet. It's still weird to call Charlotte a seasoned vet, right? I remember her in NXT going against Tiffany. And I just think their styles are going to gel really well with each other. and almost mirror images in my mind.
For sure. I have to agree with that.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. Is there anything else before we wrap up, Will?
I think I'm about out of things to talk about.
No, it's been good. It's been good working with you today. I felt
Yeah,
like
we missed John, but he's a busy guy.
he's a busy guy, and I know we'll tag him right back in next weekend.
Yep.
I felt like thank you for working with me today. I feel like we covered all areas wrestling, that we watch and love. So, any shout outs before we head out?
Just to Carlos and Stampede. I know that there's been a little bit of uncertainty going on, but they're still part of our team. We still love them. They do great content. They focus on a lot of areas that we don't have time to focus on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They run the X Spaces usually on Mondays and Wednesdays, coinciding with after Raw and after Dynamite. I try to tag in when I can into the spaces, and sometimes I'm working on other stuff, but I still kind of hear what the vibe of the community is, and they have a very nice group over there, and also kind of shout out to DWE group and everybody else that kind of this whole IWC community is really coming together, and it's kind of fun just to hear all the different takes out there and how many fans love wrestling in a good, positive way. So,
and we absolutely appreciate anybody who's listening.
Absolutely. So you guys can follow me over on Twitter X at the Bryan Adkins. I also, in addition to Wrestling Fans Incite, have on YouTube at Tap Out Talk. And Will, you're super busy on Twitter X. You want to give me your handle?
Did you call me super busy?
I did, and I was being sarcastic, but
no, y'all can get a hold of me at William Hoppe 8.
At William Hoppe 8. And I want to vouch for you here on that. If he doesn't respond to you immediately, it's not because he's not trying.
No, I'm actually just as busy as John is, just in different aspects.
So, all right, man. Well, that'll do it for us today. Thank you again to everybody listening. Hit that like button, leave a comment down below. It greatly helps out our channel. And until the next week, enjoy wrestling.